There's a pattern you keep repeating, and you don't even see it. You meet someone with potential. You see who she could be if she just made better choices, had more discipline, understood herself better. So you invest. You give advice. You create opportunities. You try to inspire her toward the version of herself you can see, but she can't. You think you're being supportive. You think you're being a good man. But what you're actually doing is avoiding your own life by obsessing over fixing hers. And deep down, underneath all that generosity, is a transaction. If I help her become better, she'll finally appreciate me the way I need to be appreciated. This isn't love. This is a covert contract wrapped in nobility. You've convinced yourself that you're just naturally giving, naturally helpful, naturally invested in other people's growth. But watch what happens when your help isn't appreciated, when she doesn't take your advice, when she makes the same mistakes you warned her about, when she chooses someone else despite everything you've done. Suddenly, all that selfless generosity turns into resentment. You feel used. You feel unappreciated. You wonder why you wasted your time. That shift from generous to bitter reveals the truth. You were never giving freely. You were investing with the expectation of return. The reason you're attracted to broken people isn't because you're compassionate. It's because they make you feel needed in a way that whole people don't. Someone who has their life together doesn't need you to fix them, which means you have to show up as an actual partner rather than savior. That's terrifying because you don't know how to relate to people as equals. You only know how to relate from a position of superiority where you're the helper and they're the helped. This dynamic protects you from real intimacy because you never have to be vulnerable. You're always the strong one, the stable one, the one with answers. It's a perfect defense mechanism disguised as virtue. Most men don't realize they're addicted to being needed until they're with someone who doesn't need them. Then they panic. They create problems to solve. They point out flaws that need fixing. They manufacture drama just to have something to rescue her from. Because if she's fine on her own, what's your value? If she doesn't need your wisdom, your resources, your guidance, then you're just another person. And that's the identity crisis you've been avoiding. The possibility that without the role of savior, you don't know who you are or what you offer. Here's what actually happens when you stop trying to fix people. You suddenly have time and energy for your own development. All those hours you spent analyzing her problems, crafting solutions, managing her emotions, that capacity redirects toward yourself. And immediately you realize how far behind you are on your own goals, how much of your potential you've neglected while focusing on hers. The fix-it addiction is just another form of procrastination. It lets you feel productive and purposeful while avoiding the harder work of building your own life. The dynamic you're creating isn't sustainable anyway. Even if she does improve, even if your guidance helps, you've established yourself as her superior. You're the teacher, she's the student. You're the stable one, she's the mess. This power imbalance might feel comfortable initially, but it prevents genuine partnership. She can't respect you fully because you've positioned yourself above her, and you can't respect her fully because you're always seeing her through the lens of her deficiencies. Eventually, either she outgrows the dynamic and leaves, or she stays, and both of you settle into quiet resentment. Let me tell you what strong men actually do. They set standards and enforce boundaries. They don't try to change people. They simply refuse to tolerate behavior that doesn't meet their requirements. If someone in their life is chaotic, unreliable, or destructive, they don't launch a rehabilitation project. They create distance. They don't debate or convince or gradually withdraw. They make clean decisions based on observable patterns rather than imagined potential. This isn't cold, it's honest. It's respecting people's agency enough to let them be exactly who they choose to be while maintaining your own standards about who you allow close to you. The women you're trying to fix don't actually want to be fixed by you. They might say they appreciate your help. They might acknowledge that you're good for them. But appreciation isn't attraction. Gratitude isn't desire. You think if you can just help her enough, she'll finally see your value. She already sees it. She sees that you're useful. She sees that you provide emotional support, practical assistance, maybe financial help. She sees a resource, not a man she's drawn to. Because attraction doesn't work that way. Women aren't attracted to men who try to save them. They're attracted to men who have built something worth joining. Stop confusing your anxiety about her choices with care. You're not worried about her well-being out of pure concern. You're worried because her instability threatens the future you've imagined. Her bad decisions reflect poorly on your judgment for choosing her. Her lack of progress invalidates the time you've invested. Her chaos creates uncertainty in your life. This is self-interest, not selflessness. Real care will be allowing her the dignity of her own path, including her mistakes, without needing to control the outcome. But you can't do that because you've attached your identity to her trajectory. The moment you accept that people are exactly who they show you they are, everything changes. You stop waiting for potential to materialize. You stop making excuses for patterns. You stop believing that this time will be different. You evaluate people based on consistent behavior, rather than occasional glimpses of what they could be. This might sound harsh, but it's actually the foundation of healthy relationships. You can't build anything stable on fantasy. You need to assess reality clearly, then decide if that reality works for you. Not the edited version, not the future version, not the version that exists only in your hopeful imagination. Here's what nobody wants to admit. Sometimes you stay because leaving would mean admitting you were wrong. You invested time, energy, emotion, maybe money into the situation. You've told people about her. You defended her to friends who questioned your choice. Walking away now means all of that was wasted. So you double down. You invest more. You try harder. You convince yourself that breakthrough is just around the corner. This is sunk cost fallacy applied to relationships. The rational move is to cut losses when something isn't working, but ego makes you pour good resources after bad, trying to prove your initial decision was a mistake. Your need to fix others is really about fixing the part of yourself that feels inadequate. If you can transform her, it proves you have value. If you can solve her problems, it demonstrates your competence. If you can make her happy, it validates your worth. You're outsourcing your self-esteem to someone else's outcomes. This is why her failures devastate you. They're not just her failures. They're evidence that you're not enough. But here's the thing. Her life isn't about you. Her choices aren't commentary on your value. Her struggles aren't your responsibility to solve. The sooner you separate her path from your identity, the sooner you can focus on building genuine worth rather than trying to prove it through her transformation. Watch what happens in your body when she makes a decision you disagree with. That tension in your chest, that urge to intervene, that immediate strategizing about how to guide her back on track. That's not concern. That's your need for control revealing itself. You've told yourself you're just trying to help, but the truth shows up in your physical response. You can't tolerate her making choices that don't align with your vision, because somewhere deep down, you believe you know better. You've appointed yourself the architect of her life, without her asking for it. And every time she deviates from your blueprint, you experience it as personal failure. The irony is that your fixing behavior actually prevents growth. When you constantly swoop in to solve problems, offer solutions, and cushion consequences, you rob people of the exact experiences they need to develop. Struggle builds capacity. Failure teaches lessons that success never can. Consequences create wisdom that advice never will. By positioning yourself as eternal safety net, you've created a dynamic where she never has to fully own her choices, because you're always there to manage the fallout. You think you're helping her avoid pain, but you're actually preventing the pain that would force her to evolve. Let's address the uncomfortable question. What if she doesn't want to change? Not because she's lazy or lacks awareness, but because the version of her that you're trying to create isn't who she wants to be? You've decided what her potential looks like based on your values, your vision, your definition of success. But maybe she's perfectly content with her life exactly as it is. Maybe your constant pushing for her to be different is experienced as rejection of who she actually is. Maybe the reason she resists your help isn't stubbornness, it's self-preservation. She's protecting her autonomy from someone who can't accept her as she is. There's a brutal truth about high-value men that the self-improvement space doesn't talk about enough. They're comfortable walking away, not as a manipulation tactic, not as a threat, but as genuine willingness to be alone rather than compromise their standards. They don't stay in situations hoping people will change. They don't invest years waiting for potential to materialize. They assess quickly, decide clearly, and move decisively. This isn't heartless. It's having enough self-respect to refuse situations that don't serve you. The man who can't walk away has no leverage, no standards, and no real choice. He's just enduring whatever he gets and calling it loyalty. Your friends probably see what you refuse to see. They watch you make excuses for behavior you'd never tolerate from anyone else. They've listened to the same complaints about the same patterns for months or years. They've offered perspective that you immediately defend against. And they've eventually stopped saying anything because they realize you're not actually looking for advice. You're looking for permission to keep doing what you're doing. This is what happens when you've built your identity around a relationship or a role. Admitting it's not working means dismantling part of how you see yourself. So you stay and you rationalize, and you slowly lose respect from people who care about you. The scarcity mindset is what's really driving this. You don't think you can do better, so you cling to what you have while trying to mold it into what you want. You've convinced yourself that this is your best option, that you won't find someone more compatible, that starting over would be too difficult. This is poverty consciousness applied to relationships. Abundance mindset recognizes that there are countless potential partners who already align with your values, who don't need fixing, who are actively working on themselves. But accessing those options requires believing you deserve them. And if you don't believe that, you'll stay stuck trying to convert someone who isn't interested in becoming what you need. Here's what changes when you finally stop. You become attractive to different types of people. The healthy, self-aware, emotionally stable people who previously avoided you because they could sense your savior complex. They suddenly become accessible because you're no longer radiating that desperate energy of needing to be needed. You're no longer scanning for problems to solve. You're no longer positioning yourself as superior. You're just showing up as yourself, with clear standards and boundaries, interested in partnership rather than projects. This shift doesn't require becoming someone different. It just requires stopping the behavior that's been repelling the exact people you actually want. The fix-it addiction also protects you from your own vulnerability. As long as you're focused on her problems, you never have to address yours. As long as you're the stable one, you never have to admit where you're struggling. As long as you're giving advice, you never have to ask for help. It's a perfect deflection strategy. You get to feel superior and useful while avoiding the discomfort of your own unresolved issues. But the thing about avoidance is that it doesn't actually make problems disappear. It just lets them compound in the background until they explode in ways you weren't prepared for. Let me tell you what masculine leadership actually looks like in relationships. It's not managing someone else's life. It's building such a compelling vision for your own life that high-quality people want to join you. It's having standards that naturally filter for compatibility rather than trying to force compatibility through fixing. It's being clear about what you're building and what you require from a partner, then letting people self-select in or out. The right person doesn't need to be convinced, converted, or rehabilitated. They show up already aligned with your direction. They add to what you're building rather than requiring constant maintenance just to stay functional. You keep having the same conversations, the same arguments, the same disappointments. If you've addressed an issue more than 3 times and nothing has changed, the message is clear. Change isn't coming. People show you who they are through patterns, not promises. She might genuinely intend to be different. She might feel bad about disappointing you. But intentions without consistent action are just comfortable lies you both tell yourselves to avoid making hard decisions. At some point, continuing to engage with the same pattern while expecting different results isn't optimism. It's delusion. The question you need to ask isn't, how do I help her change? It's, why am I so invested in someone changing rather than finding someone who already is what I need? That question makes you uncomfortable because it points directly at your own avoidance. Maybe you're afraid of being alone. Maybe you're scared you can't attract someone better. Maybe you're attached to the identity of being the patient, understanding, support a partner. Maybe you've sunk so much time that walking away feels like admitting defeat. Whatever the reason, it's about you, not her. And until you're honest about your own motivations, you'll keep repeating this pattern with different people. Real relationships are built between 2 people who are already whole. Not perfect, but whole. Meaning they have their own direction, their own purpose, their own emotional regulation, their own standards. They're not looking for someone to complete them or fix them. They're looking for someone to complement what they've already built. When you show up as a complete person with a clear path, you naturally attract other complete people. When you show up as a fixer looking for projects, you attract people who need fixing. It's not complicated. You get what you're optimized for. Stop negotiating with reality. This is who she is. This is a pattern. This is what you're signing up for if you stay. Not the potential version. Not the future possibility. Not the person she becomes after you've invested another year. This. Right now. Today. Can you accept this permanently? Not tolerate it while hoping it changes, but genuinely accept it as your reality? If the answer is no, you already know what you need to do. The only question is whether you'll do it now or waste more time pretending you don't know. The masculine energy that women actually respond to isn't the caretaker, the fixer, or the therapist. It's the builder. The man who's so focused on constructing something meaningful that he doesn't have excessive time or energy to manage someone else's chaos. He's not cold or unavailable. He's just clear about his priorities. His life is the main thing, and partnership is about someone adding value to that, not becoming his full-time project. This clarity is magnetic because it's rare. Most men are drifting, seeking purpose through relationships rather than bringing purpose to relationships. Your time and energy are finite resources that you're currently spending on diminishing returns. Every hour invested in trying to change someone who doesn't want change is an hour you didn't spend developing yourself, building skills, pursuing goals, or connecting with people who already align with your values. This isn't just a relationship problem. It's a resource allocation problem. And if you track where your resources actually go versus where they create the most value, the math would be devastating. You already know this. You're just more comfortable with familiar dysfunction than unfamiliar possibility. Here's the final piece. Letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you finally respected both yourself and her enough to stop forcing something that doesn't work. It means you valued your time enough to stop investing it where it produces no return. It means you trusted that something better exists even if you can't see it yet. The attachment to proving you can make it work, to validating your initial choice, to demonstrating your loyalty, that's all ego. Real strength is admitting when something isn't serving you and having the courage to walk toward unknown possibility rather than known limitation. Stop trying to fix her. Start building a life that only attracts people who don't need fixing.